In the spring of 2016, a group of high school students from Maplewood High School eagerly prepared for a long-anticipated school trip to the breathtaking landscapes of Pine Ridge National Park. The air was filled with excitement as they boarded the bus, their laughter echoing through the aisles. Among them was Mr. Thompson, a beloved teacher known for his passion for nature and his ability to inspire curiosity in his students. He was more than just an educator. He was a mentor, a guide, and a friend. With his camera in hand, he was determined to capture every moment of this adventure, from the towering trees to the sparkling streams. As the bus wound its way through the winding roads leading to the park, the students chatted animatedly about the activities planned for the weekend. They would hike, explore, and learn about the flora and fauna of the region. Mr. Thompson, with his infectious enthusiasm, shared stories about the park's history and the wildlife that called it home. His excitement was palpable, and the students felt a sense of safety and camaraderie under his watchful eye. Upon arriving at the park, the group set up camp in a clearing surrounded by towering pines. The sun filtered through the branches, casting dappled shadows on the ground. That first evening, they gathered around a campfire, roasting marshmallows and sharing ghost stories. Mr. Thompson encouraged them to embrace the wilderness, to appreciate the beauty around them. He took photos of the students, capturing their joy and laughter, moments that would become cherished memories. The next day, the group embarked on a planned hike to a scenic overlook. The trail was rugged, winding through dense woods and rocky terrain. Mr. Thompson led the way, his camera clicking away as he documented the journey. The students followed, their spirits high, unaware that this day would take a dark turn. As they reached a particularly steep section of the trail, Mr. Thompson paused to take a few more photos, encouraging the students to explore the area around them. It was during this brief moment of distraction that everything changed. When the group gathered to continue their hike, Mr. Thompson was nowhere to be found. Panic set in as they called out his name, their voices echoing through the trees. The laughter that had filled the air just moments before was replaced by a heavy silence, a growing sense of dread. The students searched the surrounding area, retracing their steps, but there was no sign of him. Realizing something was terribly wrong, they made their way back to the campsite, where they alerted the other teachers and chaperones. The atmosphere shifted from confusion to alarm as they organized a search party. Local authorities were contacted, and soon, search and rescue teams arrived, combing the woods for any trace of Mr. Thompson. The once vibrant trip had turned into a desperate search for a missing person. Days turned into weeks as search efforts continued. Helicopters flew overhead, and volunteers from the community joined the search, scouring the dense forest for any sign of the beloved teacher. The students, once filled with excitement, were now haunted by the uncertainty of his fate. They shared their memories of Mr. Thompson, recalling his kindness and the way he made learning come alive. Each story was tinged with sorrow, a reminder of the man who had inspired them. Despite the extensive search efforts, no clues emerged. The authorities conducted interviews with the students, teachers, and park staff, trying to piece together the events of that fateful day. Some students mentioned seeing a shadowy figure in the distance, while others recalled strange noises coming from the woods. But as the days passed, the leads grew colder, and the community was left grappling with the sudden loss of a beloved figure. The emotional toll on the students was profound. Many struggled to cope with the trauma of witnessing their teacher's disappearance. They held vigils, lighting candles in his memory, but the absence of closure weighed heavily on their hearts. The school community rallied around them, offering support, but the haunting question remained: what had happened to Mr. Thompson? As the weeks turned into months, the case grew cold. The search was officially called off, but the impact of Mr. Thompson's disappearance lingered. The school created a memorial in his honor, a place where students could come to remember the man who had touched their lives. Yet, the unresolved mystery hung over the community like a dark cloud, a reminder of the fragility of life and the unknown. In the years that followed, the story of Mr. Thompson became a cautionary tale, a haunting reminder of the dangers that lurked in the wilderness. The students who had once looked up to him now carried the weight of his absence, their lives forever altered by the events of that spring day. The laughter that had once filled the halls of Maplewood High School was replaced by whispers of what might have been, and the search for answers continued, even as the world moved on. But for some, the need for closure never faded. The memory of Mr. Thompson lingered, a ghost in the minds of those who had loved him. As they grew older, they found themselves drawn back to the woods, searching for answers in the shadows of the trees. The mystery of his disappearance remained unsolved, a haunting, cold case that would echo through the years, leaving behind a trail of questions that may never be answered. In the wake of Mr. Thompson's disappearance, the small town of Maplewood was plunged into a state of confusion and despair. The vibrant energy that had once filled the high school hallways was replaced by a heavy silence, as students and faculty grappled with the reality of their beloved teacher's absence. Local authorities quickly mobilized, launching a thorough investigation that would soon reveal the complexities of the case. The search for answers began with interviews, as detectives sought to piece together the events leading up to that fateful day. The first interviews were conducted with the students who had been on the trip. They gathered in small groups, their faces a mix of fear and uncertainty. Some spoke of Mr. Thompson's enthusiasm for the outdoors, recalling how he had encouraged them to embrace the beauty of nature. Others, however, shared unsettling observations. A few students mentioned that Mr. Thompson had seemed distracted during the hike, his laughter less frequent, his gaze often drifting into the trees as if he were searching for something just beyond their reach. These conflicting accounts painted a picture of a man who was both beloved and troubled, leaving investigators with more questions than answers. As the investigation progressed, the police turned their attention to the adults who had accompanied the students. Fellow teachers and chaperones were interviewed, each offering their perspective on Mr. Thompson's behavior. Some described him as a dedicated educator, always focused on his students, while others noted that he had seemed unusually anxious in the days leading up to the trip. The tension in the air was palpable as the detectives probed deeper, searching for any hint of what might have driven him to vanish without a trace. Among the adults, one teacher recalled a conversation with Mr. Thompson just days before the trip. He had expressed concerns about the pressures of teaching and the expectations placed upon him. This revelation added another layer to the investigation, suggesting that Mr. Thompson may have been struggling with more than just the demands of his job. The detectives took note of these insights, recognizing that understanding his state of mind could be crucial in unraveling the mystery of his disappearance. As the investigation continued, the focus shifted to the surrounding wilderness. Search teams combed through the dense forest, their efforts hampered by the challenging terrain. The area was vast, filled with thick underbrush and steep hills, making it difficult to search for any signs of Mr. Thompson. The police utilized tracking dogs and aerial searches, but the results were disheartening. Days turned into weeks, and the hope of finding him alive began to fade. The community, once united in their search efforts, started to feel the weight of despair. Amidst the ongoing search, rumors began to circulate. Some students claimed to have seen a mysterious figure lurking in the woods on the day of Mr. Thompson's disappearance. Whispers of a shadowy presence fueled speculation and fear, leading to a growing sense of paranoia within the community. The police investigated these claims, but without concrete evidence, they struggled to make sense of the stories. The more they dug, the more elusive the truth became. As the weeks passed, the emotional toll on the students and their families became increasingly evident. Many struggled to cope with the unresolved loss, their lives forever altered by the sudden disappearance of a man who had inspired them. Grief manifested in different ways. Some students withdrew into themselves, while others became obsessed with finding answers. They formed search parties of their own, determined to uncover the truth, even as the official investigation stalled. The school organized counseling sessions to help students process their feelings, but the pain of uncertainty lingered. The absence of closure weighed heavily on the community, and the once bustling school became a place of quiet reflection. Memorials were held, and candles were lit in Mr. Thompson's honor. But the haunting question remained: what had happened to him? The emotional scars left by his disappearance ran deep, and the community struggled to find a way to heal. As the investigation continued to yield no results, the police faced mounting pressure from the community to provide answers. Frustration grew as the case grew cold, and the detectives found themselves at a crossroads. They had exhausted all leads, and the lack of evidence left them with little to go on. The emotional weight of the case began to take its toll on the investigators as well, as they grappled with the reality that they may never uncover the truth behind Mr. Thompson's disappearance. In a final effort to reignite the investigation, the police held a press conference, appealing to the public for any information that might lead to Mr. Thompson's whereabouts. They urged anyone who had been in the area during the time of his disappearance to come forward, hoping that a fresh perspective might shed light on the case. The community rallied around the call for help, but as the days turned into weeks, the response was dishearteningly sparse. The emotional landscape of Maplewood was forever altered. The laughter that had once filled the school hallways was replaced by a somber silence, and the memory of Mr. Thompson lingered like a ghost. The unresolved nature of his disappearance haunted the students, teachers, and families, leaving them with a sense of longing for answers that may never come. As the investigation stalled, the community was left to grapple with the reality that they might never know what happened to the man who had touched their lives so profoundly. But even as hope began to fade, the story of Mr. Thompson was far from over. The unresolved mystery continued to linger in the minds of those who had known him, and the search for answers would soon take an unexpected turn. The emotional scars left by his disappearance would drive some to seek closure, while others would find themselves drawn deeper into the shadows of the past, determined to uncover the truth, no matter the cost. 7 years had passed since Mr. Thompson vanished into the depths of Pine Ridge National Park, yet the echoes of his absence reverberated through the halls of Maplewood High School. The once vibrant atmosphere had dulled, replaced by a lingering sense of loss that permeated every classroom and corridor. In the center of the schoolyard stood a memorial dedicated to him, a simple stone marker surrounded by flowers that students and faculty alike would visit to pay their respects. It served as a reminder of the man who had inspired so many, but it also symbolized the unresolved mystery that haunted the community. As the school year began anew, a fresh face appeared among the faculty. Miss Carter, a passionate and dedicated teacher, had recently moved to Maplewood, eager to make a difference in her students' lives. However, she quickly sensed the weight of the past that hung over the school. Conversations among students often drifted to Mr. Thompson, and the memorial became a focal point for discussions about loss and grief. Intrigued by the stories she heard, Miss Carter felt compelled to learn more about the man whose disappearance had left such a profound impact on the community. Determined to uncover the truth, Miss Carter began her own investigation into the events surrounding Mr. Thompson's vanishing. She reached out to former students, hoping to gather their memories and insights. Many were hesitant to revisit the painful memories, but some were willing to share their experiences. As she listened to their stories, she began to piece together a timeline of events leading up to the ill-fated trip. Each account revealed a different facet of Mr. Thompson's character, painting a complex picture of a man who had been both a mentor and a source of comfort for his students. One former student, Sarah, recounted how Mr. Thompson had encouraged her to pursue her passion for photography. She remembered him as a patient teacher who had taken the time to help her develop her skills. But as she spoke, a shadow crossed her face. She revealed that on the day of the trip, she had noticed Mr. Thompson acting strangely, as if he were preoccupied with something that weighed heavily on his mind. This revelation sent a chill down Miss Carter's spine, igniting her curiosity further. What could have been troubling him so deeply that it would lead to his disappearance? Another student, Jake, shared a more unsettling memory. He recalled a moment during the hike when he had seen Mr. Thompson arguing with a stranger in the woods. The encounter had left him feeling uneasy, but at the time, he had brushed it off as a minor incident. Now, reflecting on it years later, he wondered if it had been more significant than he had realized. Miss Carter felt a knot tighten in her stomach as she listened to Jake's account. Could this stranger have played a role in Mr. Thompson's disappearance? The questions multiplied, and the pieces of the puzzle began to take on a darker hue. As Miss Carter delved deeper into the investigation, she reached out to faculty members who had worked alongside Mr. Thompson. Some were reluctant to discuss the past, their faces clouded with grief and regret. Others, however, opened up about their own struggles with the loss. They spoke of the guilt they felt for not being able to prevent his disappearance and the emotional scars that lingered long after the search had ended. Each conversation revealed hidden secrets and unspoken fears, adding layers to the narrative of Mr. Thompson's life and the impact of his absence. One teacher, Mr. Jenkins, shared a particularly poignant memory. He had been close friends with Mr. Thompson and had noticed a change in him in the months leading up to the trip. Mr. Jenkins described how Mr. Thompson had seemed increasingly withdrawn, often lost in thought. He had confided in Mr. Jenkins about the pressures of teaching and the expectations placed upon him, but he had never hinted at any serious troubles. The revelation left Miss Carter with a sense of unease. What had been going on in Mr. Thompson's life that had driven him to such a breaking point? As the investigation progressed, Miss Carter began to feel the weight of the emotional trauma that had settled over the community. The students she spoke with were not just recounting memories, they were reliving the pain of loss. Many had never fully moved on, their lives forever altered by the absence of a man who had meant so much to them. The emotional scars ran deep, and Miss Carter found herself grappling with her own feelings of grief for a man she had never met but whose impact was undeniable. Determined to honor Mr. Thompson's memory, Miss Carter organized a gathering for the former students and faculty. She hoped it would provide a space for healing and reflection, a chance for everyone to come together and share their stories. As the day approached, she felt a mix of excitement and apprehension. Would the gathering help bring closure, or would it reopen old wounds? On the day of the gathering, the atmosphere was charged with emotion. Former students and faculty members filled the school auditorium, their faces a tapestry of hope and sorrow. Miss Carter opened the event by sharing her own reflections on Mr. Thompson, emphasizing the importance of remembering him not just as a teacher, but as a person who had touched countless lives. As she spoke, she could see the tears welling in the eyes of those in attendance, a testament to the lasting impact he had made. One by one, attendees began to share their memories. Laughter mingled with tears as they recounted stories of Mr. Thompson's kindness, his passion for teaching, and the moments that had shaped their lives. But as the stories flowed, so did the pain. Some spoke of their struggles to cope with his disappearance, revealing the deep emotional scars that had formed over the years. The gathering became a cathartic release, a space where grief could be expressed and shared. As the event drew to a close, Miss Carter felt a sense of purpose. The stories shared that day had illuminated the complexities of Mr. Thompson's life and the impact of his absence on the community. But even as they honored his memory, the unresolved mystery of his disappearance loomed large. The questions remained. What had truly happened to Mr. Thompson? And would the truth ever come to light? In the days that followed, Miss Carter continued her investigation, driven by a newfound determination. The emotional weight of the stories she had heard fueled her desire to uncover the truth. She began to explore the possibility that there were still hidden clues waiting to be discovered, pieces of the puzzle that could shed light on the mystery. As she delved deeper into the past, she felt a sense of urgency. The community deserved answers, and she was determined to find them, no matter where the search might lead. The journey ahead would not be easy, but Miss Carter was ready to face the challenges that lay ahead. The haunting legacy of Mr. Thompson's disappearance would not be forgotten, and she was prepared to confront the shadows of the past in her quest for the truth. The emotional scars of the community were still fresh, and the search for answers had only just begun. As the school year progressed, Miss Carter found herself increasingly drawn into the mystery of Mr. Thompson's disappearance. The stories she had gathered from former students and faculty had ignited a fire within her, a determination to uncover the truth that had eluded the community for so long. One afternoon, while cleaning out the school's storage room, she stumbled upon a dusty box tucked away in a corner. Curiosity piqued, she pulled it out and opened it, revealing a collection of forgotten items from past school trips. Among them lay Mr. Thompson's old camera, its surface scratched and worn, yet still intact. Her heart raced as she held the camera in her hands, a tangible connection to the man whose absence had left such a profound impact on so many. Miss Carter felt a surge of hope. Perhaps this camera held the key to understanding what had happened during that fateful trip. She decided to take it home, eager to review the footage and see if it contained any clues that could shed light on the mystery. As she plugged the camera into her computer, anticipation mixed with anxiety. What would she find? The first few videos were innocuous enough, capturing moments of laughter and joy from the trip. Mr. Thompson's voice echoed through the speakers as he encouraged the students to explore their surroundings, his enthusiasm palpable. But as she continued to scroll through the footage, the tone shifted. The later videos were unsettling, filled with an undercurrent of tension that sent chills down her spine. In one clip, the group was hiking along a narrow trail, the trees looming ominously overhead. The students laughed and joked, but Mr. Thompson's demeanor was different. He seemed distracted, glancing over his shoulder as if he sensed something lurking just beyond the frame. As Miss Carter watched, she felt a knot tighten in her stomach. The footage revealed strange occurrences that had gone unnoticed at the time. In one video, a low, eerie sound echoed through the woods, causing the students to pause and look around in confusion. Mr. Thompson, however, appeared unfazed, continuing to film as if he were trying to capture something unseen. The tension in the air was palpable, and Miss Carter couldn't shake the feeling that something was terribly wrong. In another clip, shadows flitted between the trees, barely visible but undeniably present. Miss Carter leaned closer to the screen, her heart racing. Were those figures moving in the background? She replayed the footage, her mind racing with possibilities. The students had been so focused on their hike that they hadn't noticed the strange happenings around them. But Mr. Thompson had the realization weighed heavily on her. What had he seen that day? What had he been trying to capture? As she continued to sift through the footage, Miss Carter felt a growing sense of responsibility. The emotional weight of the discovery pressed down on her, and she knew she had to share her findings with the community. This footage could provide the answers they had been searching for, a glimpse into the moments leading up to Mr. Thompson's disappearance. But she also understood the potential consequences of revealing such unsettling information. Would it reignite old wounds? Would it bring more pain to those who had already suffered so much? That night, sleep eluded her as she replayed the videos in her mind. The shadows, the strange noises, Mr. Thompson's distracted demeanor, each detail haunted her thoughts. She felt a sense of urgency to act, to uncover the truth behind the unsettling footage. The next day, she gathered her notes and prepared to present her findings to the school administration. She hoped they would understand the importance of addressing the mystery head-on, rather than allowing it to linger in the shadows. When Miss Carter met with the principal and other faculty members, she laid out her findings with a mix of excitement and trepidation. She explained how she had discovered the camera and the unsettling footage it contained. The room fell silent as she played the clips for them, the tension palpable as the eerie sounds filled the air. The expressions on their faces shifted from curiosity to concern as they watched the videos unfold. It was clear that the footage had struck a chord, reigniting the pain of Mr. Thompson's disappearance. After the presentation, the principal expressed his gratitude for Miss Carter's efforts, but also voiced his concerns. He worried about the emotional toll this could take on the students and the community. The last thing they needed was to reopen old wounds without a clear path forward. Miss Carter understood his perspective but felt a deep conviction that the truth needed to be uncovered. The community deserved answers, and she was determined to help them find closure. In the days that followed, Miss Carter reached out to the former students once more, inviting them to view the footage and share their thoughts. She hoped that by confronting the past, they could begin to heal. As they gathered in the school auditorium, the atmosphere was charged with emotion. Many of the students had not seen each other since the trip, and the weight of their shared experience hung heavily in the air. As the footage played, gasps and murmurs filled the room. The students watched in disbelief as the strange occurrences unfolded on screen. Some were visibly shaken, while others appeared deep in thought, grappling with the memories that the footage had resurfaced. Miss Carter felt a mix of empathy and determination as she observed their reactions. This was not just about uncovering the truth, it was about helping them confront their grief and find a way to move forward. After the screening, a discussion ensued, filled with raw emotions and unfiltered memories. Some students shared their own experiences from that day, recalling moments they had long buried. Others expressed their fears and anxieties, grappling with the unresolved nature of Mr. Thompson's disappearance. The conversation was cathartic, a release of pent-up emotions that had lingered for years. Miss Carter listened intently, her heart aching for the pain they had endured. As the gathering came to a close, Miss Carter felt a sense of hope. the students had begun to share their stories, and in doing so, they had taken a significant step toward healing. But the mystery of Mr. Thompson's disappearance still loomed large, and the unsettling footage had only deepened the questions surrounding his fate. What had he encountered in those woods? What had he seen that had driven him to vanish without a trace? Determined to find answers, Miss Carter resolved to continue her investigation. The footage had opened a door, and she was determined to walk through it. She began to explore the possibility of revisiting the site of the disappearance, hoping that by retracing Mr. Thompson's steps, she might uncover new clues. The emotional weight of the journey ahead was daunting, but she felt a sense of purpose driving her forward. The truth was out there, waiting to be discovered, and she was ready to face whatever shadows lay ahead. As Miss Carter delved deeper into the mystery surrounding Mr. Thompson's disappearance, she felt an overwhelming sense of responsibility to the former students who had been affected by the tragedy. The stories they had shared with her weighed heavily on her heart, and she realized that many of them had never truly processed the events of that day. In an effort to bring closure to the community, she decided to organize a reunion for the students who had been on the ill-fated trip. It was a chance for them to come together, share their experiences, and perhaps uncover more pieces of the puzzle that had haunted them for years. The day of the reunion arrived, and the atmosphere was thick with anticipation and anxiety. Miss Carter had reserved the school auditorium, a space that had once been filled with laughter and learning, but now felt heavy with the weight of unresolved grief. As the former students began to trickle in, she could sense the tension in the air. Some greeted each other with warm hugs, while others stood awkwardly, unsure of how to navigate the emotional landscape that lay before them. Miss Carter welcomed them, her heart racing as she prepared to facilitate a conversation that could either heal or further fracture the fragile bonds among them. Once everyone was seated, Miss Carter opened the floor for discussion, encouraging the students to share their memories of Mr. Thompson and the events leading up to his disappearance. As the first few stories were shared, the mood shifted from apprehension to nostalgia. Laughter mingled with tears as they recounted moments of joy and inspiration, recalling how Mr. Thompson had encouraged them to embrace their passions. But as the conversation progressed, the tone began to change. Old wounds were reopened, and the atmosphere grew charged with unresolved emotions. One student, Emily, spoke up, her voice trembling with emotion. She recalled a moment during the hike when she had seen Mr. Thompson arguing with a stranger in the woods. The memory had haunted her for years, and she felt compelled to share it. "I thought it was just a misunderstanding at the time," she said, her eyes darting around the room. "But now I wonder if it was something more." The room fell silent, the weight of her words hanging in the air. Miss Carter felt a chill run down her spine as she realized the implications of what Emily had just revealed. Another student, Jake, chimed in, his voice rising with intensity. "I saw it too. They were shouting at each other. I thought it was just a disagreement, but now I can't shake the feeling that it was serious." The tension in the room escalated as more students began to share their own experiences from that day. Some spoke of strange noises they had heard in the woods, while others recounted feelings of unease that had settled over them during the hike. The atmosphere became charged with fear and uncertainty as the group grappled with the possibility that Mr. Thompson may have been involved in something sinister. As the stories unfolded, accusations began to surface. Some students questioned whether Mr. Thompson had been hiding something, while others defended him, insisting that he had always been a caring and dedicated teacher. The emotional turmoil reached a boiling point as voices grew louder, and the room erupted into a heated debate. Miss Carter watched in dismay as the very bonds that had once united them began to fray. The unresolved grief and anger that had simmered beneath the surface for years now spilled out, threatening to tear the group apart. In the midst of the chaos, Miss Carter felt a surge of determination. She knew that this confrontation was necessary, that they needed to confront their fears and the possibility that the truth was far more complicated than they had ever imagined. Taking a deep breath, she called for silence, her voice steady as she addressed the group. "I understand that this is painful, but we need to face these feelings. Mr. Thompson's disappearance has affected all of us, and we owe it to him to seek the truth." Her words resonated with some, and the room gradually quieted. Miss Carter encouraged them to share their fears and suspicions openly, to create a space where they could confront the darkness that had lingered for so long. Slowly, the students began to share their thoughts, revealing the emotional scars that had formed over the years. Some admitted to feeling guilty for not doing more to help Mr. Thompson, while others expressed their anger at the situation and the unanswered questions that continued to haunt them. As the discussion continued, Miss Carter noticed a shift in the atmosphere. The students began to listen to one another, their shared experiences creating a sense of solidarity. They were no longer just individuals grappling with their own pain. They were a community bound by a shared tragedy. The confrontation had forced them to confront their fears, and in doing so, they began to find a sense of healing. But even as they shared their stories, the specter of Mr. Thompson's disappearance loomed large. The unresolved nature of the case hung over them like a dark cloud, and the possibility that he may have been involved in something sinister lingered in the air. As the reunion drew to a close, Miss Carter felt a mix of hope and trepidation. They had taken a significant step toward healing, but the truth remained elusive. In the days that followed, the emotional weight of the reunion settled heavily on Miss Carter's shoulders. She had witnessed the pain and fear that had been buried for so long, and she felt a renewed sense of urgency to uncover the truth. The stories shared during the reunion had sparked a fire within her, and she knew that she had to dig deeper. The possibility that Mr. Thompson had been involved in something darker than anyone had realized was a haunting thought, and she felt compelled to explore it further. Determined to follow the leads that had emerged during the confrontation, Miss Carter began to reach out to local authorities and investigate the stranger that had been seen arguing with Mr. Thompson. She hoped that by uncovering more about this mysterious figure, she could shed light on the events leading up to his disappearance. The emotional journey ahead would not be easy, but she was ready to face whatever shadows lay ahead in her quest for the truth. As she prepared to dive deeper into the investigation, Miss Carter couldn't shake the feeling that they were on the brink of something significant. The reunion had opened old wounds, but it had also ignited a sense of purpose among the former students. They were no longer just haunted by the past. They were ready to confront it. The search for answers was far from over, and Miss Carter was determined to uncover the truth, no matter where it might lead. As Miss Carter continued her investigation into the mystery of Mr. Thompson's disappearance, she felt an unrelenting pull toward the old camera she had discovered in the school's storage room. The footage she had already reviewed had been unsettling, but she sensed there was more to uncover. One evening, after a long day of interviews and research, she decided to take a closer look at the camera itself. As she examined it, she noticed a small, hidden compartment on the side that she had previously overlooked. Her heart raced as she pried it open, revealing a memory card tucked away inside. With trembling hands, she removed the card and inserted it into her computer. The screen flickered to life, and she felt a mix of anticipation and dread. What would this new footage reveal? As she began to watch, the first few clips appeared familiar, showcasing the laughter and joy of the students during their trip. But as she continued, the tone shifted dramatically. The footage became darker, more chaotic, and Miss Carter felt a chill creep down her spine. In the final clips, the camera shook violently, and the sound of heavy breathing filled the audio. Miss Carter leaned closer, her heart pounding in her chest. The scene unfolded in the woods, where Mr. Thompson was clearly in distress. He was running, glancing back over his shoulder as if he were being pursued. The trees blurred past him, and the sounds of the forest were drowned out by the rapid thumping of his heart. Miss Carter's breath caught in her throat as she realized that this was not just a casual hike. Something terrifying was happening. Suddenly, the footage cut to a darkened area of the woods, and the camera captured a shadowy figure lurking in the distance. The figure was indistinct, but it was clear that Mr. Thompson was aware of its presence. He stumbled, and the camera fell to the ground, capturing only the sound of his frantic breathing. Then, a piercing scream echoed through the audio, abruptly cutting off the footage. The screen went black, leaving Miss Carter in stunned silence. The implications of what she had just witnessed crashed over her like a wave. Mr. Thompson had been in danger, pursued by an unknown figure in the woods. The footage raised more questions than it answered. Who was this figure? What had happened in those final moments? And why had no one ever mentioned seeing someone else in the area? The emotional weight of the discovery pressed down on her, and she felt a deep sense of responsibility to share this information with the community. As she sat in her dimly lit living room, the reality of the situation began to sink in. The camera, once a tool for capturing memories, had transformed into a chilling reminder of the unresolved mystery that continued to haunt Maplewood. Miss Carter knew that she had to act quickly. The community deserved to know the truth, even if it was painful. She felt a surge of determination as she prepared to present her findings to the former students and faculty who had gathered for the reunion. The next day, Miss Carter organized an emergency meeting, inviting everyone who had attended the reunion to come together once more. The atmosphere was tense as they filed into the auditorium, the weight of anticipation hanging in the air. Miss Carter stood at the front, her heart racing as she prepared to reveal the shocking footage. She could see the apprehension on their faces, the fear of what they might learn. As she played the final clips, gasps filled the room. The students watched in disbelief as Mr. Thompson's last moments unfolded on the screen. The frantic running, the shadowy figure, the scream, it was all too much to process. The emotional turmoil in the room was palpable, and Miss Carter felt the weight of their grief and confusion. Some students cried, while others sat in stunned silence, grappling with the reality of what they were witnessing. When the footage ended, the room erupted into chaos. Questions flew through the air like arrows, each one more desperate than the last. Who was that? What happened to him? Why didn't we know? The emotional intensity of the moment was overwhelming, and Miss Carter struggled to maintain control. She understood their pain. She felt it too. The truth they had sought for so long was now laid bare, but it only deepened the mystery surrounding Mr. Thompson's fate. In the midst of the turmoil, one student, Jake, stood up, his face pale. "We need to go back to the woods," he said, his voice trembling. "We need to find out what happened." The room fell silent as everyone turned to him, the weight of his words hanging in the air. Miss Carter felt a surge of agreement. They had to confront the past, to seek answers in the very place where everything had gone wrong. As the meeting concluded, Miss Carter felt a mix of hope and dread. The community was ready to take action, but the journey ahead would not be easy. They were about to step into the unknown, and the emotional toll of revisiting the site of Mr. Thompson's disappearance would be profound. But she also sensed that this was a necessary step toward healing. They needed to face their fears and confront the shadows that had haunted them for so long. In the days that followed, Miss Carter and the former students organized a trip back to Pine Ridge National Park. The group was a mix of apprehension and determination, each person grappling with their own emotions as they prepared to return to the site of their shared trauma. As they arrived at the park, the familiar sights and sounds flooded back, but this time, the atmosphere was charged with tension. The laughter that had once filled the air was replaced by a heavy silence, each person lost in their thoughts. Standing at the edge of the forest, Miss Carter felt a sense of foreboding. The trees loomed overhead, casting long shadows that seemed to stretch into the unknown. She could feel the weight of history pressing down on her, the unresolved questions swirling in her mind. What had happened to Mr. Thompson? What had he encountered in these woods? And would they find the answers they were seeking? As they ventured deeper into the forest, the group moved cautiously, their hearts pounding in their chests. Each step felt like a journey into the past, a confrontation with the ghosts that lingered in the shadows. Miss Carter led the way, her determination unwavering, but she couldn't shake the feeling that they were being watched. The woods felt alive, filled with secrets waiting to be uncovered. The search for answers would take them to the very heart of the mystery. But as they pressed on, Miss Carter couldn't help but wonder if they were prepared for what they might find. The truth about Mr. Thompson's fate was within reach, but it came with the haunting realization that some mysteries may never be fully understood. The camera, once a symbol of joy, now served as a chilling reminder of the unresolved questions that continued to haunt the community. As they moved deeper into the woods, the weight of the past loomed large, and the search for closure had only just begun.